The school district wanted to replace her with a younger driver who could keep to the schedule better and stop being so paranoid about safety protocols. But when Eva walked through Lincoln Elementary's front doors, Dorothy's 25 years of convoy security experience became the only thing standing between 47 children and unthinkable tragedy. Welcome to Retired Soldier Stories. Before we dive into this incredible tale of protective instincts and life-saving preparation, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe that some guardians never stop watching over our most precious treasures, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who protect children every single day, whether they wear uniforms or drive yellow buses. Dorothy Martinez had been driving bus hash 47 for Lincoln Elementary School for 4 years, and in that time, she'd never missed a day, never had an accident, and never received a single safety violation. She was also the most complained about driver in the Millbrook School District's transportation department. The complaints were always the same. Dorothy drove too slowly, took too long at each stop, and insisted on safety protocols that other drivers considered excessive. She required children to wait for her signal before crossing the street, even when traffic was clearly stopped. She positioned her bus at angles that other drivers found awkward, but that gave her complete visibility of all approaching vehicles. Most frustrating to parents and administrators, Dorothy was chronically late returning from routes because she insisted on conducting a thorough safety check of the bus after every trip. Mrs. Martinez, transportation supervisor Carl Johnson, had said during her most recent performance review, "I appreciate your commitment to safety, but you need to understand that we have schedules to maintain. Other drivers manage to keep their children safe without all these extra procedures." Dorothy had nodded politely, as she always did when receiving criticism about her methods. "I understand your concerns, Mr. Johnson. I'll do my best to improve my efficiency." But Dorothy hadn't changed her procedures because she knew something that the school district didn't. She wasn't just a retired grandmother trying to supplement her pension by driving a school bus. She was Staff Sergeant Dorothy Martinez, retired military police, with 25 years of experience conducting convoy security operations in some of the world's most dangerous places. Dorothy's transition from military service to civilian life had been more difficult than she'd expected. After a quarter-century of protecting convoys carrying everything from medical supplies to high-value military personnel, retirement had left her feeling purposeless and disconnected from the mission that had defined her adult life. The school bus driver position had seemed like a perfect solution. It allowed her to continue protecting people while staying involved with her community. What Dorothy hadn't anticipated was how much her military training would conflict with civilian expectations. The safety protocols that had kept her convoy safe in Iraq and Afghanistan were considered paranoid and inefficient when applied to a suburban school bus route. Her instinct to scan for threats, plan escape routes, and maintain constant situational awareness was seen as excessive caution rather than professional competence. But Dorothy couldn't turn off 25 years of training, and she wouldn't compromise on the safety of 47 children who depended on her every day to get them to and from school safely. If that made her the least popular driver in the district, so be it. Lincoln Elementary School sat on 15 acres at the intersection of Maple Street and Oak Ridge Road, surrounded by suburban neighborhoods and a small commercial district. It was the kind of safe, middle-class community where parents worried more about test scores than security threats, where the biggest safety concern was usually playground injuries or food allergies. Dorothy's route covered 12 stops throughout the surrounding neighborhoods, picking up children ranging from kindergarten through 5th grade. She knew every child by name, knew which ones needed help with their backpacks, and had memorized the faces of every authorized adult who was allowed to meet them at their stops. More importantly, Dorothy had spent 4 years conducting her own security assessment of Lincoln Elementary and the surrounding area. She knew every access road, every potential choke point, and every location where a threat might position itself to target the school or her bus. She'd identified 3 different evacuation routes from the school grounds and had mentally rehearsed response protocols for everything from medical emergencies to more serious security threats. This level of preparation was invisible to parents and school administrators, who saw only an older woman who took too long to complete what should have been simple transportation tasks. They didn't understand that Dorothy's excessive safety measures were the result of professional training that had kept convoys safe in environments where a moment of inattention could result in catastrophic casualties. The warning signs had been building for weeks, though only Dorothy had recognized them for what they were. A man in his 30s had been observed near the school at unusual times, walking past the playground during school hours and sitting in his car in the parking lot after dismissal. Dorothy had noted his license plate number and reported her observations to the principal, but her concerns had been dismissed as the overactive imagination of an anxious, elderly employee. Dorothy also noticed changes in the school's security posture that concerned her. Budget cuts had eliminated the part-time security guard position, leaving the school with only an aging intercom system and door locks that Dorothy's professional assessment deemed inadequate. The emergency response protocols were outdated and had never been tested under realistic conditions. Most troubling, Dorothy had observed that many staff members had become complacent about security procedures, often propping open doors that were supposed to remain locked and failing to challenge unfamiliar adults who entered the building. From her perspective as someone who had spent decades thinking about how to protect valuable targets, Lincoln Elementary School was vulnerable in ways that its community refused to acknowledge. On the morning of March 15th, Dorothy began her route with the same methodical precision that had characterized her convoy operations. She conducted her pre-trip safety inspection, checked her communication equipment, and reviewed her mental map of potential emergency routes. The children boarded the bus with their usual mix of excitement and sleepiness, chattering about upcoming tests and weekend plans. Dorothy's first indication that something was wrong came at 8:47 a.m. as she was approaching the school for the morning drop-off. The man she'd been observing for weeks was standing near the main entrance, but instead of his usual casual observation, he was moving with purpose toward the building. More concerning, Dorothy could see that he was carrying a large duffel bag and wearing a heavy coat despite the warm spring weather. Dorothy's 25 years of convoy security experience screamed that this was a threat situation developing in real time. She made a split-second decision that would have been automatic during her military service but was unprecedented in her civilian role. Instead of proceeding to the usual drop-off area, she kept driving past the school. "Mrs. Dorothy," called out Emma, a third grader who always sat in the front seat. "You missed the school." "I know, sweetheart," Dorothy replied, keeping her voice calm while her mind raced through tactical options. "We're going to take a little detour this morning." Dorothy was reaching for her radio to contact the school when she heard the first gunshots. The sound was unmistakable to someone who had spent decades in conflict zones, but it seemed impossible in the context of a suburban elementary school on a Tuesday morning. Dorothy's radio crackled with panicked voices from the school office. Confirmation that her worst fears were becoming reality. All units, we have an active shooter at Lincoln Elementary. Lockdown protocols are in effect. Emergency services are en route." The 47 children on Dorothy's bus began to understand that something was very wrong. Some of the older students had heard the gunshots, and the younger ones were picking up on the adults' tension. Dorothy could hear whispered conversations and see worried faces in her rearview mirror, but she forced herself to maintain the calm, authoritative presence that had steadied her military convoys under fire. "Listen to me, everyone," Dorothy said, activating the bus's PA system. "We're going to practice our special safety drill today. I need everyone to stay in their seats, keep their voices quiet, and follow my instructions exactly." "Can you do that for me?" The children nodded, their trust in Mrs. Dorothy overriding their fear. They didn't know that their bus driver was implementing a tactical response protocol that she'd refined over decades of protecting valuable cargo in hostile environments. Dorothy's first priority was to get the children away from the immediate threat area, using her knowledge of local roads that she'd acquired during 4 years of route planning. She navigated away from Lincoln Elementary while maintaining radio contact with emergency responders. Her second priority was to find a secure location where the children could be safely transferred to their parents. But Dorothy's military experience had taught her that active shooter situations were unpredictable and that the initial attack might be followed by secondary threats targeting evacuation routes or rally points. She couldn't simply drive to the nearest safe location and wait for the situation to resolve. She needed to actively protect her passengers until the threat was neutralized. Dorothy drove to Millbrook Community Center, a facility she'd identified during her security planning as having multiple advantages for emergency situations. It was far enough from the school to be outside any immediate threat area. It had large areas that could accommodate emergency vehicles, and it had communication facilities that could coordinate with law enforcement and school district personnel. As Dorothy pulled into the community center parking lot, she was already implementing the next phase of her response protocol. She positioned the bus to provide maximum protection for the children while allowing rapid evacuation if necessary. And she began the process of accounting for every passenger to ensure that no child had been left behind or injured during the emergency relocation. "Okay, everyone," Dorothy announced. "We're going to wait here until the principals and your parents can meet us. I need to check that everyone is safe and accounted for." Dorothy's passenger manifest was more than just a school district requirement. It was a tactical document that allowed her to track the location and status of every person under her protection. As she moved through the bus, she noted that all 47 children were present and uninjured. Several were crying, and many were asking questions about what was happening at their school. "Dorothy," asked Marcus, a fifth grader who was normally one of the more confident kids on the bus, "are we safe here?" Dorothy knelt down beside his seat and looked him in the eye with the same steady confidence that had reassured soldiers under her command. "Marcus, I promise you that I will keep you and everyone else on this bus safe. That's my job, and I'm very good at my job." While Dorothy was reassuring the children, she was also maintaining radio contact with law enforcement and school district officials who were coordinating the emergency response. Her calm, professional communication style and detailed situation reports quickly identified her as someone with relevant experience, and she found herself serving as a liaison between the incident command and the families of the children on her bus. The next 3 hours tested every aspect of Dorothy's training and experience. She maintained the children's calm by engaging them in quiet activities and age-appropriate explanations of what was happening. She coordinated with parents who were arriving at the community center to retrieve their children, ensuring that each child was released only to authorized adults. Most importantly, she served as a stable, reassuring presence for 47 scared children who needed to believe that the adults in their lives could protect them from dangers they couldn't understand. Throughout this period, Dorothy's radio provided updates on the situation at Lincoln Elementary. The active shooter had been neutralized by police response teams, but the school remained in lockdown while investigators processed the scene and ensured that there were no additional threats. 2 staff members had been wounded but were expected to recover, and no students had been physically harmed. As Dorothy listened to these updates, she realized that her decision to drive past the school instead of proceeding with the normal drop-off had likely saved lives. If she had followed standard procedures, her 47 passengers would have been in the building when the shooting began, potentially adding to the casualties and certainly creating additional chaos that would have complicated the emergency. Response: by 2:00 p.m., all the children had been safely reunited with their families, and Dorothy was completing her incident reports with law enforcement and school district officials. The investigating officers had quickly recognized that Dorothy's response had been professionally executed and had asked detailed questions about her background and training. "Ma'am," said Detective Sarah Rodriguez, who was leading the investigation, "your actions this morning prevented what could have been a much more serious tragedy. Can you tell me about your experience with emergency response procedures?" Dorothy had smiled and handed the detective a business card that she'd kept in her wallet for 13 years. Staff Sergeant Dorothy Martinez, U.S. Army Military Police. Convoy Security Operations, 1995 to 2020. Detective Rodriguez had stared at the card, then back at Dorothy. 25 years of convoy security. Iraq, Afghanistan, and a few other places that aren't supposed to be on my official record, Dorothy had replied. When you've spent that long protecting convoys carrying valuable cargo through hostile territory, protecting a school bus full of children becomes second nature. The investigation that followed revealed the extent to which Dorothy's military experience had influenced her approach to school bus safety. Her excessive safety protocols were actually standard convoy security procedures adapted for civilian transportation. Her paranoid observations about potential threats had identified the shooter weeks before the attack. Her inefficient route planning had included contingency routes for exactly the kind of emergency that had occurred. Most importantly, Dorothy's military training had prepared her to make split-second decisions under pressure, maintain calm leadership during crisis situations, and prioritize the protection of her passengers above all other considerations. These skills had saved 47 lives, and had provided a model for how civilian transportation safety could be enhanced by incorporating military-grade security awareness. The school district's response to Dorothy's actions was swift and comprehensive. Instead of criticizing her for deviating from standard procedures, they requested that she help develop new safety protocols for all school transportation. Her excessive safety measures became the new standard for driver training, and her threat assessment procedures were incorporated into district-wide security planning. Dorothy was also asked to serve as a consultant for other school districts that wanted to improve their emergency response capabilities. Her unique combination of military convoy experience and civilian transportation knowledge made her an expert in protecting children during transit, and her success at Lincoln Elementary had demonstrated the value of applying military-grade security thinking to civilian educational environments. But the most meaningful recognition came from the children and families who had been on bus hash 47 that morning. At the end-of-year school ceremony, Dorothy was presented with 47 handwritten thank you letters from her passengers, each one expressing gratitude for keeping them safe when it mattered most. "Dear Mrs. Dorothy," wrote Emma, the third grader who had first noticed that they weren't stopping at school, "thank you for being brave and smart and keeping us safe. I wasn't scared because I knew you would protect us. I want to be like you when I grow up." Dorothy framed that letter and hung it in her kitchen, where it served as a daily reminder that her military service hadn't ended when she retired. It had simply taken a new form, protecting convoys carrying medical supplies through hostile territory and protecting school buses carrying children through suburban neighborhoods required the same skills, the same vigilance, and the same unwavering commitment to the safety of those who depended on her. The paranoid old bus driver that the school district had wanted to replace became the most respected member of their transportation department. Her safety protocols, once considered excessive, were now recognized as the difference between routine school transportation and life-saving emergency response. Dorothy continued driving bus hash 47 for 3 more years, until her retirement at age 70. During that time, Lincoln Elementary never experienced another security incident. But Dorothy's presence provided reassurance that if one occurred, there would be someone with the right training, the right mindset, and the right level of commitment to protecting children ready to respond. Because Staff Sergeant Dorothy Martinez had learned something during 25 years of convoy security that she applied every day to school bus safety. The most important mission wasn't the one with the highest profile or the most recognition. The most important mission was the one that got everyone home safely at the end of the day. Some guardians wear combat uniforms and carry military weapons. Others wear safety vests and drive yellow buses. But the mission remains the same. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Maintain vigilance when others let their guard down, and never compromise on safety even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. Dorothy Martinez had spent her entire adult life protecting valuable cargo. For 25 years, that cargo had been military personnel and critical supplies. For 7 years, That cargo had been the most valuable thing in the world. The children who represented their community's future. And in both roles, she had never lost a single life that was placed under her protection. So now I ask you, how many Dorothy Martinez's watch over our children every day? How many former military personnel have found ways to continue their mission of protection in civilian roles? Share your thoughts in the comments, because heroes don't always carry guns or wear uniforms. Sometimes they carry clipboards and wear safety vests, standing guard over our most precious treasures. Thank you for watching Retired Soldier Stories. If this tale of protective vigilance and life-saving instincts moved you, subscribe and help us honor those who never stop serving, even when their battlefield becomes a school bus route. Until next time, remember that the person driving your children to school might be the most qualified guardian they'll ever have. And sometimes, the safest place your child can be is in the care of someone whose definition of excessive caution was forged in places where caution meant the difference between life and death.